Okay, now we're moving to Article 2, the executive branch. It's all about the presidency, okay? So, Article 2 questions. Number 1, what do we call the chief executive? That's an easy one. The president, okay? Now, sure you're wondering, really sure you're wondering, where we got the name president from, okay? To be honest, no one's quite sure, okay? There is a story that in Holland, country of Holland, there was a mayor and they called that mayor the president. But, is that where they heard the word? We're not quite sure. But the presiding officer during the Articles of Confederation was called the president. So you could see why they just chose that name for the actual chief executive of the United States. There was a lot of discussion about what you call our chief officer, our chief executive. And some of the framers actually proposed calling him king, but that did not go over well. And finally, president was what was selected. Question B, how long is the term of office? 4 years. Okay, 4 years. Will there be a substitute or replacement in case the chief executive dies or quits? And yeah, very much. It's called the vice president. In the end, what's the vice president for? What does he do or she do? Well, to be there in case the president dies or quits. Then you take over. Okay, there's a story of a vice president who did not like the president he was serving under. And every morning he would go into the White House, go into the Oval Office, stick his head in there just to see if the president was breathing. And if he saw the president was breathing, he would go, and he would walk out. Okay, that's the vice president. Okay, what are the qualifications to be the chief executive, to be the president? Well, very simple. Got to be 35 years of age. You got to be a citizen of the United States, a natural born citizen. And you have to have lived in the United States for 14 years. Okay? So, the youngest president we ever had elected was John F. Kennedy. The youngest president we ever had was Teddy Roosevelt. He became president when William McKinley was assassinated. Teddy Roosevelt was the vice president at the time. So, if go back Pete Buttigieg or Tulsi Gabbard, if they had won the Democratic nomination, they would be the youngest people ever to be the nominees of the parties and to be the president if they had won. But they didn't win, so it's not an issue. There's always the question, what does it mean? You have to be a natural born citizen. There's actually no definition of that. The sense is it's someone who was born in the United States, someone who was born on American territory, or born in a military base that it's American territory. But the reality is no one knows. I have a niece who was born in Hong Kong, okay? And she was born in a British hospital in Hong Kong. And after she was born, my sister, the mother, got a letter from the State Department, the U.S. State Department, saying, we don't know if your daughter is eligible to be a citizen, to be president of the United States. We don't know. It's never been defined. And it's true. It has never been defined. Okay. Let's see. We're on question E already. What is the pay for the chief executive? Oh, that's simple. $400,000 a year. And you get $50,000 in expenses for entertainment. In other words, for entertaining heads of state, that sort of thing. So President Trump sometimes talks about the $450,000 he makes. The actual salary is $400,000 a year. By the way, want to point out President Trump donates his salary. He's talked about it. It's gone for various things in the U.S. government. It's gone for national parks. It's gone for care of veterans. He makes the decision you get paid 4 times a year, once every 3 months, and he makes the decision of who he wants to donate his money to. So $400,000 divided by 4, you get it every 3 months. You get $100,000 each year. And it turns out that they take taxes out. So his salary was about $87,000 for 3 months. And so he would donate it. So anyway, $400,000 a year. Not bad, but let's be honest, you're the most powerful person in the world. How do we replace the chief executive if they are corrupt or incompetent or not doing what the people want? Well, it turns out there's an amendment called the 25th Amendment that might come into play. But the principal way we do it, and you all have lived through it, is impeachment, where the House of Representatives says this president has done something wrong. And they bring up charges against the president. Those charges go then to the Senate, and the Senate holds a trial. And we had a trial going at the beginning of this semester. Seemed like a long time ago. But on February 5th or 6th, the trial concluded. The president was acquitted. You need 2/3 of the Senate to convict the president. Didn't get the 2/3. So the president was acquitted, and that's it. So Donald Trump is the third president we've had who has been impeached. And we're talking about Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump. So those three have been impeached, but none of those have been convicted. And as a consequence, all three finished out their term in office, or at least Donald Trump is heading that way. Okay, next question, question H. What is the oath of office for the chief executive? Remember I said earlier that everybody in the U.S. government takes an oath to protect and preserve and defend the Constitution. Okay, and I said it's the same oath, except for the president. So let's read the oath of office for the President of the United States. It's the only oath that's specifically in the Constitution. So therefore, it meant a lot to the framers, these words that I'm about to read. And this is in Article 1, Section 1, Paragraph 8. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. You notice what his job is: to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So, doesn't say those words, so help me God. They've been added. They were added by George Washington, and presidents subsequent to him have continued to say it. Okay? And then, is there anything else? Oh, I skipped a question. Question H. What are the duties of the chief executive of the President of the United States? They are in Article 2, Section 2, Paragraph 1 and 2 and 3. Let me just go over them quickly. Commander-in-Chief. Okay. Power to grant reprieves and pardons. We've talked in the past about President Trump's pardon power and his use of that president's power, of that pardon power. He shall have the power to, with advice and consent of the Senate, to make treaties. He shall nominate, again with the advice and consent of the Senate, ambassadors, public ministers, judges of the Supreme Court, and other officials of the United States. And the president shall have the power to fill up all vacancies that exist. So it's basically appointment power. You appoint people to carry out your wishes. It's war-making power, protection power. And as we talked about in Article 1, the president is the one who signs laws. Okay. There you go. So that's the duties of the President of the United States. Over time, we've decided that really the President is there to protect us. And we've always interpreted that in the military sense, protect us from enemies, domestic, like right-wing terror, left-wing terror, or international terrorism, particularly from Russia, China, whatever. But we are in a unique time, as I say these words. We're in a unique time in American history where the power that the president has, more importantly, the duty that the president has, is to protect us from what President Trump calls the invisible enemy. It's to protect us from this coronavirus. And that is a presidential duty. He's responsible for it. He has to take action. So, what's the job of the president? To protect us. Okay, and then this question here, Amendment 12. So we've already talked about Article 2. It's a really short article. I'm sorry, yeah, it's a really short article. It lays out the presidency, lays out the job of the presidency, the oath, the term, that sort of stuff. And then the next question is, how do we select or elect a chief executive? And that's actually in the 12th Amendment to the Constitution. It was in the original second article of the Constitution, but it was amended because the election of 1800, which was a bitter, bitter election, and it basically ended in a tie. So what they did is they amended the Constitution. And the amendment to the Constitution is the 12th Amendment to the Constitution. And what that does is it says, okay, to elect the president, we will use the Electoral College. Each state will have electors. Their job is to represent that state in an electoral college, which shall meet after the election, or we ordinary citizens vote, and they meet, and they are the ones who cast the votes that elect the president. So our votes, when we vote this November, our votes simply elect electors who will then gather, and they will cast the votes for the presidency. Okay, that's set up by the 12th Amendment to the Constitution. The focus in the Electoral College is on states. Okay, and each state gets a number of electors, and that's determined by how many people you have in Congress. So Texas has 2 U.S. senators, 36 members of the House of Representatives. We get 38 electors in the Electoral College. That makes us pretty important. Okay, remember, Hillary Clinton won 20 states. Donald Trump won 30 states. Why did Donald Trump win the election in 2016? It's because he won all those states. Okay, you have to compete all over the place. That's the idea behind the Electoral College. Okay, so that's our first crack at the job of the presidency, what the president does. There'll be more in our next segment.